It's a show where we discuss various topics that may or may not be relevant to your life. It may also not be relevant, it may just be used like random information. But I hope you'll stick up. The show's starting now, like after this thing. Don't go anywhere.
Whoa, okay, all right. Yeah, it's that time again, everybody. People that are watching, it's time for the show again. Man, it feels like history's repeating itself sometimes. But yeah, I don't know. We got a good streak going here, a couple days in a row, and I'm like, why not just keep it going? Let's keep it going. So yeah, what's up? Looks like we got somebody's awake in the chat, and that's nice. Somebody's awake. Nice. Props to that. Yeah, but a bunch of different things to talk about today. Definitely want to get into the center and talk about. I got some frames there, some serious frames, bro. But before that, I want to do what I like to call it's not really like a segment. It's just a thing that I want to do right now, and I don't know if I'm going to do it again. But let's call it the segment where, yeah, we try to just prove over and over again the same thing that that color and light and symbolism has taken precedent over everything in entertainment. That it's basically more important than script writing, casting, actors, music, graphic design. Well, I guess it is part of graphic design, but that the colors and the symbolism are really it's all that matters these days because it really does have so much subconscious psychological power that it's impossible to resist. And the ideas and concepts will be implanted in you whether you like it or not. And yeah, you might say, well, that you sound like a crazy conspiracy person on YouTube. And well, that's unrelated, and that would definitely be true. But I'm saying that this is a true factual thing that I think if you talk to the right people, they would know exactly what we're talking about here. And the thing is, it's just so blatantly obvious. They have to put it in front of your eyeballs. So right, they run the risk of detection. They're exposing their entire hand with every single frame, so it's up to us to just kind of look slightly more closer than I guess your average person would be looking. So, right, this is from Avenue 5, the hit new show on HBO. It is actually pretty hilarious, well made, good actors, all of that kind of stuff. But right, it is a high budget, big production. So right, they're not gonna just leave this color game on the table. It's too important, right? So here we have Dr. House slash Hugh Laurie slash the captain of the ship, and they have to go out and save the ship from a disaster that I don't really want to get into the details too much, but what do we see? We got on his head, he's got the blue color on his head, right? He's the boy. And then on her head, she's got the red color. Okay, so that's just sort of the start of it. And you might say, well, that's just a random coincidence. It's the blue and the blue and the red again, but maybe it's just right boy girl kind of thing they got going on here. Okay, okay, I could buy that, but then they turn around. This is literally like seconds later in the show, and both of them on their backs, they have these little. I guess it's supposed to be their oxygen tanks, but what do we see? Yet again, we got the blue and we got the red. And it's on both sides. We got the blue and the red over here, and then we got the blue and the red. It's the blue and the red, and constantly in those frames. Okay, so you might say, okay, that's pretty subtle. That's pretty subtle. Oh, well, I at this point, I honestly, personally, I don't know how you would deny any of this. It's legit undeniable what's going on here with the colors. The question really remains, as with a lot of deep rabbit holes that we go into around here. What is exactly the purpose and effect? How does this really work? And yeah, what's the deal? But I think this study of the blue and the red, the idea of the blue and the red, go back a really long time. I should probably dig up some more details on that, right? But I think if you're old enough, you remember those 3D glasses that they would hand out at I don't know, science center or other sort of. I remember getting one for some like weird dinosaur video game. Yeah, and if you have blue on one eye and red on the other eye, then 3D images will start to pop out. And so this, I don't know, it must be related to that concept. And there also must just be something about blue and the red that keeps people, it dociles you or grabs your attention. I go back and forth, right? Because blue and the red, they're at the opposite sides of the color spectrum. So obviously, when you see something like this, it's gonna pull your focus. It's gonna pull your eye because that's just sort of human nature. You think there's danger, and you're looking for differences in color, and this is the biggest difference that you can possibly make in the visible spectrum. So, yeah, I guess I understand why they would be using it all the time. But at the same time, there's got to be something more, and this is honestly just one frame from this whole sort of scene. Obviously, yeah, this whole thing is sort of, it's just dripping with the blue and the red. So, yeah, and end of segment. End of segment. But I'm sure we'll be running that segment again because I'm sure I'll be seeing it again. Now, what's up? It looks like we got Kelly Kubo. I think I already asked you about that. Yeah, this screen is working right now. Usually it's not. So fascinating. Good to see you guys. Let's get in the news super fast because I'm sick of it and it's lame and fake, but it should still be talked about, just if not cursorily. This is a big deal these days. Roger Stone somehow got out of getting sentenced multiple years, almost a decade in prison. And everybody's all mad about it. Well, that guy like let him off. We got to get rid of Barr because he's in his pocket. And every time I hear this story being talked about in the mainstream types, it's made to seem like this man, T-Man, invented him and has raised him as a child, and they've just been best buddies forever, and that's all Roger Stone has ever done was just be a lackey for Mr. President and do his bidding. When the reality could I mean, I guess it could be a little farther, but the reality is very much far away from that. I don't think I want to give the hill a click, but I am going to check out this Wikipedia article real quick, right? So I guess he's an older person, been around. But the thing is, I'm just going to, close your eyes if you get dizzy. I'm going to scroll down. And the whole point here, this is the part they never mention. Yeah, his career started a really long time ago. His career began in earnest in 1972. He worked on the Nixon campaign. Did a bunch of shady stuff for him. Stone maintains that he never did anything illegal during Watergate, but he was around during Watergate, crushing it with Nixon. And then you fast forward only just a tiny bit more, and it seems like he's best friends with all the ultra monsters, the Bush family. Reagan, right? Here's a really creepy picture of him with Reagan and Bush. And, right, these two men almost single handedly sort of have imploded sort of Western society. I would blame those two dudes for a lot. Less Reagan, I guess he was getting a little more manipulated, but Bush is definitely like a mastermind monster person, and Roger Stone was best friends with him. So, right, and he's been working for all these guys for a really long time, doing generally sketchy stuff, but deeply, deeply connected to everybody that's in the know in Washington. Right. So this guy was never going to go to jail. He was never, ever going to go to jail for 8 or 6 years, whatever they were trying to give him. That would that that would never happen. That'd be like sending. I don't know. I almost laughed or cried just now, like because the impossibility of this, sending somebody like George Bush to jail for doing something bad, and not even like all the war criming that he did, but for like a technicality of letting some information slip. Like the thought is laughable, and I would put Roger Stone basically in that same category. Like the thought of him actually getting in trouble, I see it as a big just red sign pointing out like this whole thing is theater, not true, and also fake. And also not even that well put together. Like, right, we clicked on the Wikipedia article and scrolled down a tiny bit and found this information. This is information that is it's basically being withheld, I would say. So think of it what you will. I don't want to put ideas in your mind. Now, I would guess that maybe, yeah, fun stuff is coming down the pike. It's going to be happening in the near future. And HSBC is definitely one of those major, major, gigantic banks. And them having to cut 35,000 jobs is pretty brutal. And yeah, there's definitely been a lot of like bank scare. It definitely seemed like Deutsche Bank was going down like almost a year ago or so. They were so massively over leveraged and just terrible balance sheet, and it seemed like they were going to go under at any minute. But that was definitely a while ago. So right, maybe they'll be able to pull their way out of it. But this is a big international conglomerate, and it's interesting that they have this image from China because it seems like they may tie the virus to other problems that are already in the works, right? It's already been sort of heavily documented that there's a big global food shortage crisis going on because of all of the poor planting seasons that have been happening in the last year. And this year promises to be no better, even though most of the big agro businesses are betting everything on this year to be a killer harvest so they can get back in the green because yeah they're tapping into their reserves all over the place, but right, and they've known this for some time, but the idea is to take that huge systemic problem and scapegoat it onto something like the virus. And right, it's the same here with the banks. Obviously the HSBC shady motherfuckers, and they probably gambled a bunch of money away on doing derivatives just like all these other major banks are doing. And well, yeah, that's just my basic vibe that this all may get blamed on the virus and lumped into it altogether to create this sort of perfect storm. And speaking of perfect storms, this is really big in the headlines today. There's so many headlines about this. The Boy Scouts of America are filing for bankruptcy. Looks like this chapter is over. Tough times for the Boy Scouts, and right, it has to do obviously a lot with the child abuse thing. And so right. That's probably all true. That's probably all real. But it makes me wonder why would this be such a big leading headline and today, right? Because a lot of this stuff gets lined up. It may have 4 or 5 different reasons for a big story like this coming out. It doesn't all have to be based on the one thing. Yeah, I would think a lot of it just reminding you of this tendency in human nature. Yeah, a lot of it reminding you about the Catholic Church. That's already right here in the headline, and just all adding towards this concept of the male figure sort of declining in our society as the female rises. So there's right. We're not reading about the Girl Scouts right now. I would hasten to guess that there is also a lot of sexual abuse in that organization, but that's not something we ever really hear about. We only ever hear about the Boy Scouts and that issue. And right, if you have a kid and you're thinking of putting them in the Boy Scouts and you read this headline, then obviously it's going to affect your choices and opinions about all that. So yeah, I don't really know quite what to make of this. Have to think about it a little bit more, but yeah, obviously multiple agendas all sort of leading down the same path. And this is, yeah, it's a perfect story. It fits so many different agendas and pushes them all further towards their goal line. And that's, at least as far as I can tell, what it's really all about. You'll they'll make fake news stories and produce $1 million movies and television series and yeah, fake the news, kill people, kidnap, do whatever it takes to change your mind about things. That's really seems to always be the goal, and I guess why it's also dangerous and bad to let just random people like me also attempt to change your mind or get in your head. That's not good, especially if smaller channels end up having more influence than these shiny packaged, well produced articles, news, movies, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, like I always say, I'm doing this as long as I can because it's obviously we're in sort of the end stages of just do whatever you want and well, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Okay, okay. So let's, before we run out of time here again today, let's check out The Sinner real quick. So, I don't know if you personally have been watching this show. It's on its 3rd season, and it is genuinely fantastic. There's an amazing team working on this show, and it's really everything. The graphics here in the beginning, the acting is fantastic, next level. Music, production design, all of that kind of stuff. And they're really throwing everything they got at it. It was really supposed to just be a limited series. It was only supposed to be one story happening. But it was so wildly popular that they ended up extending it for another season that had the same sort of detective character, but everything else was different. And this 3rd season is no different than that. And yeah, if you enjoy television, I would highly recommend it. Very, very powerful performances from everybody. But yeah, that's obviously not what this show is about. We're trying to pull apart the symbols and ideas and see what they're trying to lodge into our minds and whether we agree or not. Yeah, it's up to you. It's up to you. So, at the beginning, a lot of these shows have these sort of conditioning, brainwashing techniques that they use at the beginning. I've seen it reported from many people that every time the news starts or some news type show, they have a spinning sort of device like a clock or a globe or some other sort of spinning thing. And the word on the street is that entrains your mind and prepares you for being more receptive to whatever is about to be talked about. And that's actually why I do use the blue and the red at the beginning of this show. I didn't always, but I've sort of landed on that because, yes, I know the power. And so at the beginning, it's a very short opening sequence, but we see these series of very beautiful, they're sort of like ink blots, powerful images, and they sort of cycle through one another, and it's a beautiful artwork, but at the same time is just an expert in training brainwashing technique. I don't even like to use that word brainwash because it's different than that. It's a reconfiguring of your wires. Maybe because that's what you honestly thought is the best solution or idea or way of being. But a lot of this happens at the subconscious level, so it's honestly hard for you and me to even control. I think that's why I'm trying to be so conscious when I'm watching this stuff, because I think it's the only defense against these techniques and methods. Right, and then it lands on this sort of hand drawn. It is very beautiful, but I just wanted to highlight that opening sequence real quick. Now in the show, this particular show, it's very interesting, and I've titled this episode "Piercing the Veil" because that's often a lot of times what's at the root, it seems like, of the show. It, they do a fantastic job of hinting at something, right, that this detective is looking for and never really ends up fully uncovering, right? In the season before this, it was about child abuse and a sort of weird rich sorority, not sorority, it was like a clubhouse out in the woods, very fancy, and it ended up that, yeah, surprise surprise, they were taking kids out there to mess them up. And yeah, he ended up discovering one of those kids. But in this particular season, there's not a lot of child abuse going on. I was sort of surprised. We just get this wildly popular actor. Now he was on what was it called, White Collar, doing some pretty lame acting, but he's come a long way, and yeah, doing very good work in this show. So he is just a regular dude, like working at a he's like a history teacher or something. Just he's about to have a baby and just living his regular life. But this old friend shows up and, yeah, is hinting at all this weird stuff that he's reminding him about. That he seems really angry, like he left him in the lurch or something. And it's that same basic concept and idea, even though it's a completely different plot and everything. It is that same idea that there's some hidden knowledge, some occulted knowledge that some people may have, and it has to do with pushing the limits, going to the edge, and maybe doing stuff that you're not supposed to do, right? I.e., child abuse and that kind of thing. And that somehow through these crazy events, you may actually reach some higher plane, or it's hard to say. They never actually reveal what the rich fancy people are working on, but it's hinted at constantly. And we're only 2 episodes in on this, so I'm sure that some other things will be revealed, but it's already the same kind of trip, right? So this is his friend. He comes and visits him, and he's like kind of freaking him out. And yeah, they go for a drive, and it comes out he ends up like pulling the emergency brake and crashing the car because he doesn't want to do what his friend wants him to do. He doesn't want to go back to whatever he used to be doing. It's too terrifying, and he's willing to, yeah, murder his friend in cold blood. They get in this accident, and he's still alive, and he just he doesn't save him. He just leaves him there hanging. And yeah, you're thinking the whole time, what could possibly be worth all this stress and trouble? Because he's really sort of jacked up about the whole thing. Here's a picture of him being jacked up. There, a lot of quality image of his sort of psychological despair that he's going through. And yeah, it really makes you think, like, what could these guys have possibly been getting into? His friend, they mention, is just sort of ultra rich. He has no need to be working or anything else. And you get from both of them this sense that yeah, they're bored. Like reality itself is just not giving the kick that they really need. That there really needs to be something more. And this is just what's his name, Bill Pullman. He's a fantastic actor. This guy is crushing it, and all he really has to do is just sort of sit there and give you his eyebrows. But Yeah, a bold statement, but probably one of the best detectives ever on television at just doing a detective thing. So, right, just to watch him, I would recommend checking it out. But right, he's obviously trying to get to the bottom of whatever these guys are up to, and at first it seems a little more harmless, but yeah, he finds some security footage, and they're up here on the roof of this fancy restaurant where they get the security footage, and they're like sticking knives through each other's hands, right? And here we see them on the edge of this building, like they're gonna jump off, or it almost seems like there's no plan to actually die, but there is a big emphasis on, yeah, heightening your senses as it comes to sort of this near death experience. And if you read anything, even the basics about secret societies, you know that is just part and parcel. Is that the right phrase here? It's it goes hand in hand that every major secret society has initiation rituals that involve putting you in a heightened state, uh, and yeah, mostly I guess the easiest way to do that is to make you think like they're gonna kill you, like you think you're actually going to die, and this must release some chemicals or connect some synapses in a certain way that really just puts you into that next level. That I guess, who knows? I mean, I'm not in that club. I'd be super curious. And my curiosity is just piqued more and more because it's constantly being talked about and mentioned in these TV shows. And yeah, The Sinner is just a really right out in the open sort of example of the ideas and concepts that I end up reading a lot about in Morals of Dogma and all those other nice occulted books that I would recommend everybody just, at least open and take a look at, because you really only need to read a couple paragraphs of Albert Pike to catch his vibe, and it'll give you a much better understanding of yeah, television, everything, news, all of it, because that's where it's coming from. Okay, so right, they're stabbing each other, they're up on the roof, they're yelling at each other. There's obviously some crazy stuff going on, and then Detective Man finds, damn, what are these things called? I just blanked. Fortune tellers, right? We used to make these when we were kids back in school, right? And you fold it. It's like the easiest possible origami thing you could do in your life, and you fold it together, and you're supposed to, I guess, write some stuff on here, and then you make a choice, and you open the thing and flip it open, and then that's like, I don't know, you're supposed to date this girl, or I don't know, whatever you wanted. It was just sort of an easy fortune teller, right? And that makes me think just now, if everybody was doing this as kids in school, there's also got to be something there, something seeded, something much deeper and more meaningful than just gossiping with your friends and telling fortunes. Because I definitely played this game a bunch when I was a kid, and yeah, let me know if you did too. I'm curious to see who had this experience, but right, obviously a lot of people, otherwise they wouldn't have put this in the show, because you're supposed to know instantly what they're playing with here. But this appears to be no regular fortune telling machine. I don't think I got a good still of it, but on the inside, on this first sort of row, you see different colors, and this again ties into my seemingly favorite subject here with the color theory. That, right, I guess you see blue, green, they have the other sort of primary colors on there, and I guess, yeah, you're supposed to pick one of those. Bill Pullman's playing with it, but he obviously doesn't know how to work it right. Is there another one? Yeah, okay, they got gray. Interesting. Right, and you only catch sort of snatches of this. You don't get to really ever see it for too long. But they do open it up, and when they open it up, it's instead of a fortune, instead of something gossipy or meaningful, you open it up and there's just arrows, right? I think he opens one of these up, and it's like an upward arrow and an arrow to the right. And I almost mean to go back and watch it again, because he looks at that up and right arrow, and then there's somebody standing right up and right, and like he has to look up and to the right, and then he sees the person that's trying to talk to him. So is there really actually some weird spell or magic that they put on this thing that it's able to tell the future? That still seems too lame to be killing your friend over. That there honestly seems to be just, I don't know, something that they're hinting at, and that's obviously how a lot of this stuff works. You hint at a secret or a concept or something occulted, and that'll pique everybody's interest, and you're like, well, what's that? I want to see. And then they're like, no, well, you don't get to see. And you're left wondering, well, what is it? What's so special about that thing that I can't see? There's got to be something to it, right? And maybe all of this is just one big giant long red herring, or maybe there really is something to this near death concept, this just basic idea that, yeah, what you go through, what you experience is not just saved in your memory, but can somehow trigger something larger, something out of your control, that right, if you just do the right sequence of events. And this ties together with a lot of other shows. The OA keeps coming to mind because it was the same kind of concept that you play a game, you do a thing, and this breaks you out of the matrix. And right, there's all this talk about simulation theory and all of that. Well, is there really something to that? And is there some sort of like Sonic the Hedgehog style up, down, left, right hack that can snap you out of it? Just gotta look at the fortune telling machine. I mean, maybe.
That's right. I'm saying there's hidden meaning in things. There may be things that you've seen that were like super secret and like you weren't supposed to know about, but it's okay because you couldn't see what was hidden in plain sight, and so you just passed it by like it was just some advertisement or pop-up window. But really, all of reality and truth and everything and the meaning of existence was embedded and hidden in that thing. You don't know.
All right, well, that's we made it to the end of another show. There's probably some more to talk about. I probably will be bringing you some more frames and images from The Sinner as we move forward. But I do want to address now Jay Martini. Jay Martini is in the chat right now and asking, why do you change your voice? And it's a good question. I'd say that's a pretty good question, and I have answered it before, but I don't have a problem answering it again because it's definitely part of this whole core concept, right? So, right, I'm kind of cryptic about my background and my job and my experience here because, well, I can sort of tap dance around it. I do have something to do with the entertainment industry, let's just say. And if people that I know or worked with or worked for at any given time were to find out that I was doing something like this, that, at times may or may not be criticizing work of people that I've worked with, right? Then that is no good for my quote unquote career. That would be a major bad thing, because Hollywood obviously is very opinionated and gossipy, and that's just sort of the nature of that reality. There's no getting around it. And so part of it is, yeah, genuinely to hide my identity. But the more I think about it, it's almost like an activist thing for me, for this reason that I was just talking about, that we are quickly losing the ability to have any sort of anonymity in our life. You know, as soon as everything's covered in RFID chips and all of that, right? We already are just completely locked down at this point with cell phones and all of that kind of stuff. But I picture at some point in the future this not being possible, especially when the internet ID and all of that gets locked in, that, yeah, you won't be able to create a fake Google account and start, an online persona that isn't directly connected to you, specifically you. And I'm sure in the coming elections and other things that this story will be told to us over and over again. That yeah, well, you know, the election got hacked, or there's all this fake news. It's because of these fake accounts. And well, obviously we got to stop those fake accounts because democracy. And so that's my activist statement right now. It's just, I'm being anonymous because I can, because I still can, and it's not a given. Yeah, much love, everybody. I guess we'll catch you on the next one. Hope you're having a good life, you know? And if you're not, well, you might as well go ahead and change it. There's not that much time, actually. All right, I'm out. Keep it real.